ever look up at the stars and just think, man, what if, what if we could actually live out there someday? We've all seen the movies, right? Spaceships zipping around, dodging asteroids, meeting aliens at those space bars.
Right, yeah.
But the reality of, actually building a spacefaring civilization, I mean, that's got to be a whole other story.
Yeah.
And lucky for us, you've sent in, well, it's like a mountain of information on this. Like, literally everything from the tech to, the history, even how to deal with,
The ins and outs?
the ins and outs of actually living in a galaxy with other people.
Galactic etiquette.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're doing a deep dive on that today.
Yeah.
All those aha moments that make you, the listener, sound like a total pro at your next...
Space cocktail party.
Yeah, the galactic water cooler.
It's like packing for a long journey, You've got to have the essentials.
Right.
Except instead of extra socks and toothbrushes, it's knowledge. It's knowing what's what out there. And from what you've given us to work with, there's a lot to cover. We're talking, well, the tech that gets us out there, obviously.
Yeah,
but then, the day-to-day of living in space, the history of how we deal with alien species, it's a lot.
It's a lot. And speaking of a lot, I gotta say, the tech is usually what gets me first.
Oh, for sure.
Take quantum drives, for example. We've all heard that phrase, faster than light. But this is where it gets real, right? We're talking crossing light years, distances that would take, generations to travel.
Generations, yeah.
In, a much shorter time.
Significantly shorter.
Yeah. It still kind of blows my mind that it's even possible.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it really speaks to human ingenuity, because what Dr. Scott Childress achieved back in 2075
Right.
with the first functional quantum drive, I mean, that wasn't just building a machine.
Right.
That was cracking the code of the universe, in a way.
Cracking the code.
Before his work with subquantum entanglement, instantaneous travel, that was pure science fiction.
Totally.
Now, it's how we explore the stars.
Why we get around.
And to think that humans, well, we weren't even the first to figure this out. The Xi'an, and they have fascinating history, they had quantum travel figured out millennia ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Shit. They're the ones who, their whole civilization developed so differently because of it. Imagine entire star empires rising and falling.
Rising and falling, yeah.
And we're still back here figuring out, agriculture.
Yeah, exactly.
But even with incredible speed, the galaxy it's a big place.
It's unfathomably big.
Yeah.
It's hard to even conceptualize, really.
That's where jump points come in, though, right?
Yeah, jump points, yeah.
It's that shortcut, right? Through the mountain range instead of having to climb over every single peak.
Okay, yeah.
To get where you need to go.
Yeah. Except in this case, the mountain range is, it's the fabric of space-time itself.
Whoa.
So jump points, they're these naturally occurring anomalies that once we map them and figure out how to make them behave, act like conduits between distant star systems.
Okay.
The science behind it is, it's incredibly complex. But essentially, a stable jump point, it allows a ship to enter what we call jump space, which is, think of it like a subdimensional realm where distances are, they're compressed.
So it's like a doorway.
Kinda, yeah.
Right.
A cosmic shortcut.
Right. But the thing is, with these doorways, they're not always, they're not always stable.
Notoriously unstable, some of them, yeah.
They can shift, they can collapse, some just disappear entirely.
Yeah, it's a real headache for the folks over at DSAGs,
Right. The deep space scanning and astrographical stations.
Yeah, they have a heck of a job.
They have to monitor all the known jump points.
Constantly.
Try to predict these shifts, make sure that interstellar travel is as
safe as it can be?
Yeah, exactly. As safe as possible, which that can't be an easy task.
Those DSAGs folks, they're worth their weight in platinum. Imagine you discover a new jump point.
Yeah.
And then it collapses right behind you. You're stranded. Who knows where?
Oh, man.
It's happened. That's why we need those cosmic cartographers. They keep things running.
And it's not just about mapping, right? It's got to be about understanding.
And nuances, yeah.
The nuances of each jump point, because some are trickier than others, right?
Oh, some are real beasts. You got to be on your A game, that's for sure.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about, bending space-time.
Bending space-time, yeah. You don't want to mess with that stuff lightly.
Exactly. Which, speaking of being prepared, I think we've got to talk about some of the tech that actually makes space travel possible.
Okay.
And full disclosure, I'm not talking about laser swords, although, come on, those would be amazing.
They would be pretty cool, I have to admit.
I'm talking about things like cryopods.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we've all seen it. Hop in the pod, go to sleep, wake up decades, maybe even centuries later.
Classic sci-fi trope.
It's a classic, but in the world of, actual space exploration,
Right.
cryosleep, it's more than just a cool concept.
Oh, it's essential. I mean, even with quantum drives,
Right.
some journeys, they just take time.
Years.
Years. Decades, even.
Mm-hmm.
So cryopods, they let travelers hit the pause button.
On their lives.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
They're preserving their bodies in this state of suspended animation. They wake up years, centuries later, and it's like no time has passed.
But while you're in that cryopod, time's still moving on, right?
Well,
Out in the real world, what happens to, relationships, events, the whole world you left behind? It makes you think about time itself,
yeah, it's a question philosophers have been wrestling with forever.
Yeah.
And this technology
Yeah.
just makes it even more real. Imagine waking up and everyone you knew is gone. Or the whole world's different. It's exciting and terrifying.
It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. But on a, I guess, more practical level, cryopods have been huge for medical procedures.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Especially in emergencies where, time is critical.
It's like hitting fast forward on healing.
Exactly.
Makes you wonder what other sci-fi wonders are out there.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? All this tech, it's mind-blowing when you really stop and consider. I mean, the things we just carry around today
It's crazy.
would have seemed like magic a few hundred years ago.
Totally.
But speaking of pushing the boundaries, let's talk about what it actually takes to live out there among the stars. Because visiting a planet, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But building a life, making it home, that's a whole other story.
It's it's got to be the difference between, visiting a new place on vacation, right?
Right.
Versus actually moving there.
Absolutely. You got to learn the language, the customs, the whole deal.
Adapt.
Yeah, you got to adapt. And in space, that often starts with the planet itself.
Okay.
That's why we got to talk about terraforming. And, well, it's close cousin, geohacking.
All right, break it down for me.
So imagine these massive planetary engineering projects.
Right.
The goal is to take these planets that are uninhabitable
Yeah.
and make them, habitable.
Make them livable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about, planting some trees here. We're talking about tweaking atmospheres, creating entire ecosystems from scratch, even messing with a planet's magnetic field.
Wait, hold on. Manipulating a magnetic field, that sounds like, I don't know, something out of a movie, right?
It might sound far-fetched, but the science is there. Trust me. See, a strong magnetic field, it's crucial. It protects a planet's atmosphere from getting stripped away by solar winds.
Oh, okay.
And without it, no breathable air for us.
That's broad.
It's a big problem. And that's just one example. Terraforming, it's this delicate dance. You got to understand the planet's geology, the climate cycles, all of it.
So it's like being a planetary architect.
Yeah, something like that. On a massive scale, of course.
Of course, of course. But it's not just us humans doing this, right? From what I'm seeing here, the Shan, with their head start and all,
Oh, yeah.
they've basically turned terraforming into an art form.
They've had millennia to perfect it. And they've definitely taken it further than just making a planet livable. They terraformed entire worlds for very specific purposes. Take the TA.Rongsung system, for example.
Okay.
It's basically a whole network of planets, each one carefully designed to serve a function. Industrial centers, agricultural hubs, you name it.
Wow. It makes what we're doing here on Earth with climate change seem kind of small,
It really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? It makes you think about the responsibility that comes with this technology.
Yeah.
Do we have the right to reshape entire worlds to fit our needs, even if it means changing their natural course? Those are big questions.
Really big. And I bet those questions are only going to get more complicated as we find new worlds, new life. Who knows?
Yeah, it's something to think about for sure.
Which reminds me, in all this talk about terraforming, about tech, we can't forget about the people side of space exploration, right?
Absolutely not.
We're out here meeting new species, got to understand their cultures, how to do the whole intergalactic diplomacy thing.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. It's not always easy. Imagine trying to communicate with something that evolved on a completely different world. Different language, different customs, different everything.
Oh man, that makes the Tower of Babel story seem like nothing.
Right, a walk in the park.
But luckily, it looks like we've got people working on that. Tell me more about the xenoanthropology stuff I keep seeing.
So xenoanthropology, it's basically the study of alien cultures. It's a mix of anthropology, linguistics, psychology, all that good stuff. Plus, a whole lot of intuition.
Wow, it's like a whole field.
It is. And it's a
Yes.
crucial one because these xenoanthropologists, they're the ones who observe, analyze, interpret how these alien species behave.
They're like the bridge, then.
Exactly. They're essential for making sure we can establish peaceful relations, trade, all that good stuff. And most importantly, making sure that a little misunderstanding doesn't turn into an intergalactic incident.
They're like, what, cultural ambassadors, building bridges across the galaxy? Do you have to, I don't know, do they have a degree in alien sociology now?
That would be an interesting course, wouldn't it?
Right.
I imagine it involves a lot of observation, keeping an open mind, challenging your own assumptions about what intelligence even looks like.
Right. What even is culture, right, when you're talking about a whole different species? Fascinating. But, speaking of challenging assumptions, what about those first contact stories?
Oh, yeah.
There got to be some wild ones, right? Some close calls where it almost went very wrong.
Oh, absolutely. There's one that comes to mind. The encounter with Vernon Tarr and the Banu back in 2438.
Wait, the Banu, the ones who were all about trade and, beautiful handcrafted goods.
The very same. It all came down to a misunderstanding, a gesture.
Okay.
Apparently, with the Banu extending an open hand, like how we do for a handshake.
Yeah.
Sign of aggression. Vernon Tarr almost started an intergalactic war with a handshake.
Whoa. Talk about a cultural faux pas. It just shows you we take so much for granted, right? A gesture, what we say, even just our facial expressions, it can mean something totally different depending on where you are in the galaxy.
That's exactly why those xenoanthropologists are so important.
Right.
They give us the context, the tools to make sure we're communicating in a way that shows respect,
Yeah.
After all, in a galaxy full of so many different life forms, talking things out is definitely preferable to,
To a laser fight.
yeah, to a laser
Yeah,
fight, to diplomacy over destruction, right?
Always a good policy. But, speaking of safety, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about spaceships, terraforming, but what about the everyday stuff? I mean, you hear a story like that, right? About Vernon Tarr almost starting a war with a handshake.
Yeah.
And it really makes you realize those cultural details, super important.
Oh, absolutely.
But it also gets me thinking about the gear, the actual stuff you'd need out there.
Right.
The Space Explorer survival kit. What do you pack when the unknown is, actually unknown?
Well, I'd say the Mobiglass is up there on the list of essentials.
The Mobiglass.
Yeah, forget smartphones. This thing's on a whole other level. We're talking communication, navigation, storing data, entertainment, you name it.
It's like mission control, but in your pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere in the UEE.
Oh.
Explorers, colonists, everyone relies on it.
Which is kind of wild, right? We've got tech to terraform planets, travel faster than light,
Yeah.
but we still need these, personal devices to make sense of it all.
It's about adapting, right?
Yeah.
And the Mobiglass, it's constantly evolving to meet those needs, whatever they may be. But speaking of adapting to harsh environments, let's not forget about a good environment suit.
Oh, yeah, good point. Space is stunning, sure, but it's also, actively trying to kill you every second.
Every second. And that's where a good environment suit comes in. Corrosive atmosphere on some new planet, vacuum of space got you down. It's your lifeline out there.
So more than just, providing oxygen, right?
Oh, way more. Modern environment suits, they regulate temperature, they've got radiation shielding, some even monitor your vitals, give you feedback in real time.
It's like wearing a personal spaceship.
Basically. It's pretty amazing what they could do these days, all to keep us humans alive out there.
Speaking of keeping us alive, what about tools? I'm remembering now those Banu trading networks, you mentioned them earlier.
Oh, yeah?
I'm guessing a good toolkit's got to be essential for them.
You don't last long in that business without the right gear, that's for sure. And when it comes to humans, there's one that stands out, the Pyro RYT multi-tool.
The Pyro RYT. Okay, yeah, I've heard of that. It's like the Swiss Army knife of space tools, right?
That's a good way to put it.
But what makes it so special?
It's all in the design. See, the Pyro RYT, it's modular. So you can swap out attachments, change it from a cutting tool to a laser welder, plasma torch, even a medical scanner, all with the same base unit.
Wow, talk about adaptable.
Exactly. It's all about being resourceful, being able to handle whatever comes your way, which, when you're out exploring the unknown,
Yeah.
those are pretty important qualities,
Makes you think, what will they come up with next?
right? It's incredible. We've gone from basic telescopes to quantum drives, crude maps to, jump point networks. Who knows what the future holds?
Well, on that note of endless possibility, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, I just want to say we've covered a lot today.
We have. From mind-bending tech to, well, the finer points of intergalactic small talk.
It's a lot, but for me what really sticks out is just how big it all is. The galaxy, I mean. It's full of, well, stuff we can't even imagine yet.
Absolutely. And within that vastness, each planet, each encounter, it's a chance for us to learn, to grow, to push the boundaries of what we thought was possible. So to everyone listening, think about this. Imagine you're on a newly discovered world. What excites you the most? What are you dying to learn? Because out there, among the stars, the possibilities are truly limitless.